There's about 300 of these colleges on the CBD grid just in the city centre. It's happening in every major city in Australia. It's really extreme in both Melbourne and Sydney, but every big city's got it.
नहीं लगा देख लो अभी बहुत सख्ती कर दी है इन्होंने
नहीं मेरा कॉलेज ही ऐसा है उनको पैसे दे देता हूँ मैं
This scam is what's known as a ghost college.
It's an organisation that ticks all the boxes in terms of its appearance. It looks like a training college when in fact students are not really there training. They're actually out working or doing something else with their time.
Well, the classes are empty because the students are working. They're working a variety of jobs in the hospitality industry, in early childhood and childcare, aged care, Uber drivers, food delivery, cleaning, in security, in retail. A lot of students get an ABN number and work 40, 50, 60 hours a week.
I wish, dude, this was a cool video to do, but this is, an uncool video to do. We're going to talk about some real stuff going on in Australia right now. We're going to be talking about housing crisis. We're going to be talking about gig work, saturation. We're going to be talking about breaking the law and how it's all kind of coming together, avoiding doing visas correctly, the loopholes in the visa system in Australia, which is causing more to housing crisis, and also drying up gig work as well, making it harder for people who are here doing the right thing, whether it be a citizen or whether it be someone on a working visa or someone following their visa conditions, and the way that people are destroying it, breaking it, doing the wrong thing, and they are fully aware of it. And we're gonna unpack it a little bit, okay? So the first thing we're gonna start off with is we are seeing a lot of gig work saturating out in cities. So work's drying up. Secondly, we're in the middle of a housing crisis right now. So it is difficult to get a rental in the market. There are 50 people, 60 people queuing up for some rentals, trying to get a house, trying to get a unit, trying to get a roof over their head. In fact, there's over 500,000 people migrating into Australia, and the government's like, whoa, that's a lot of people coming in. But the unspoken migration that's occurring as well is through student visas. And there's been over 700,000 student visa applications in Australia that have come through past, and students have came across to study in Australia. Now, while studying in Australia is not a bad thing, we've got an incredibly high education system. I can understand why people want to come study over here. But what if, and hear me out for a second, what if people were setting up institutions, courses, colleges, purely to have people come across here on student visas but never attend? And that brings us straight into ghost colleges. What is a ghost college? Well, students can apply to a ghost college in Australia where it's vocational training, things like mechanics, hospitality, some trade works, and they sign up and they're like, cool, I have a course in Australia. I'm an international student, therefore I can move across into Australia. There's these institutions offering these courses which are eligible to become a student in Australia. And what if I told you that no one actually attends these classes? There are hundreds of ghost colleges across Australia. Ghost college means that they have a place set up and no students ever attend. These colleges are purely set up for international students to apply to get their student visa to come across to Australia, and then they just start working and they never attend the college. Over 700,000 students have came across this year to start studying in Australia. Now, that's not to say, of course, that every single international student is using it for a work visa to just come across here and start working to bypass around the general work visa conditions for Australia, where we're looking for high-skilled workers, tradespeople, stuff like that, people who can contribute to the economy. What we're focusing on is the subsector who are using ghost colleges, so programs purely just to get people across into student visas to get them into the country, so then they can start working while there's no courses, no training, no education occurring. Now, we're going to have a look at a case from another YouTuber, and I'll credit him across on the video, who was doing an Uber ride share, talking to someone who was using ghost colleges to circumvent across a working visa.
तो आप स्टूडेंट हैं? तो दोस्त आप किस कोर्स में आए यहाँ पे?
हम सब बैचलर में आए थे और फिर हमने उसमें ट्रेडिंग कोर्स में वीज़ा अप्लाई कर दिया। मैं तो आज तक गया ही नहीं कॉलेज।
नहीं लाला देख लो, अभी बहुत सख्ती कर दी है इन्होंने।
नहीं, मेरा कॉलेज ही ऐसा है, उनको पैसे दे देता हूँ मैं।
अच्छा कितने?
उनसे बात हो रखी है, $1000 टाइम पे देने हैं मेरे को हर महीने।
वाह, कौन सा कॉलेज है भाई ऐसा?
कई कॉलेज है, नोमी कॉलेज है।
कौन सा?
नोमी कॉलेज।
नोमी कॉलेज
सिडनी में ही है, कहीं है पता नहीं, ये नहीं पता।
तो आप गए भी नहीं हो कभी?
दोस्त गया हुआ है, दोस्त वगैरह जाते हैं। मैं
तो एडमिशन कैसे मिल गया वहाँ?
एजेंट के थ्रू, एजेंट ही देखता है सब कुछ। असाइनमेंट भी नहीं बनवानी, 6 महीने के $1200 देने हैं। असाइनमेंट भी वही क्लियर करा देते हैं।
SC का है आपके पास? SC का मुश्किल है लेना लाइसेंस?
ये HR के बाद ना 1 साल की वेट करनी पड़ती है, पर मैंने ना एम्बेसी में जाके लिखवा लिया था कि मैं एम्बेसी में, इंडियन एम्बेसी में जाके मैंने उनसे रिक्वेस्ट करी, उन्होंने मेरे को लिख के दे दिया रिक्वेस्ट करने पे कि मैं एलिजिबल हूँ MC और SC चलाने के लिए। उन्होंने लिख के दे दिया, फिर मैंने जाके उनको दिखा दिया NSW को।
अच्छा,
फिर मेरे को 1 साल का वेट नहीं करना पड़ा, मेरे को साथ के साथ मिल गया MC।
वाह,
आदमी अच्छा मिल गया मेरे को वहाँ पे, और थोड़ा जानता भी था, मतलब किसी ने रेफरेंस दे दी थी, मैं गया और मैंने सही। एक DoorDash पे भी करते हैं हम। DoorDash में ना जैसे डिलीवरी उठा ली और ये हो गया कि ऊबर पे अच्छी डिलीवरी पड़ गई, तो हम कह देते हैं उनको कॉल करके, या तो ये कह देते हैं कि सिस्टम पे शो नहीं कर रहा उनके, और या फिर कह देते हैं कि स्टोर क्लोज है, तो कहीं की फोटो खींच के भेज देते हैं, जब भी आधा पैसा दे देते हैं।
वाह,
बहुत करते हैं, बहुत लूटा मैंने तो मेरे को। कह तो रहा, मैं जॉब भी नहीं ढूंढता था, मेरे पास डिलीवरी पड़ी थी $80 की, न्यू ईयर पे बिजी था काम, और मैंने वो डिलीवर नहीं करी। ठीक है, मैं पहले तो 1.5 घंटा मेरा रेस्टोरेंट पे ही लग गया, और उसके बाद मेरे को उस टाइम मिले थे, मेरे को 2 घंटे के मिले थे। मेरे को 2 घंटे के उन्होंने मेरे को दिए $250।
Shit man, $250.
Now, when you have a student visa in Australia, you can work up to 48 hours per fortnight, which is good, all well and fair. Do your 48 hours worth of work. But if you try to work more than 48 hours, you're in breach of your student visa in Australia. Okay? You can't work full time on a student visa. The entire point of it is to come across here and study, do your courses, do your education, and you can pick up a little bit of work on the side to help support yourself. And under traditional employment in Australia, they adhere to it because they get in trouble from the government. If they have people on student visas working more, they get in trouble. They're like, nope, you can't do that. That is a big no-no. Here comes your fines. And the student, if they're flagged across from doing that, they're breaching their student visa conditions, and away you can go. So the loophole is getting a student visa through a ghost college in Australia, so a course that you never actually have to attend to come across to Australia for a period of time. And once you're in, sure, do your 48 hours per week of work, and that's fine. That's all well and dandy. But where the loophole exists for doing extra work is getting an ABN, an Australian business number, and signing up to gig apps. Now, the gig apps in Australia, they're not monitoring how long people work for. They're not monitoring student visa conditions. As a business owner or a sole trader, it's your responsibility to make sure that the employees working for you, or as a sole trader, which the gig apps use, yourself, is not breaching your visa conditions. So this has opened the gateway for people signing up to ghost colleges from overseas, moving across to Australia under the premise that they're studying, and then signing up to gig apps to work, then plus picking up other employment on top of it. Now, the Australian government, they try to keep their people at the gate, being like, okay, are you bringing valuable skills to the country? What trades do you bring in? What education qualifications do you have? What can you contribute across to Australia? They're looking to bring migrants in that can contribute to the country. Now, when people try to migrate in don't have these skills and qualifications, that's when they look to ghost colleges to come in as a student on a visa and then just work full-time, if not overtime from there.
There's plenty of genuine vocational colleges out there teaching people the skills that we need, but at the same time, there's all of these colleges that are just there to really provide people with effectively a low-cost work permit. But once you enter the country on a student visa through one of the universities, one of the big things that's been happening is that uni students will get in take out a concurrent enrolment with another much cheaper vocational college and then never pay their first semester's tuition at the university. So they're getting quite easy entry into the country because of this streamlined process that's been in place for decades now. And then once they're here, there's not anyone keeping a really good track of them. In a lot of cases, they're making much more money in Australia than they might in India, Nepal, Bangladesh. I think the government turns a blind eye as much as it can. It's now gotten to the point where it's so out of hand that they've recognised that there's a problem here.
So this is contributing to Australia's housing crisis. These are people migrating in under false pretense as a student, but then working full time from there. So it's not what they were coming here to do. Secondly, it's drying up jobs in the gig sector. So your Uber drivers, your Uber Eats drivers, your DoorDash drivers, your Menulog drivers, people doing gig work around that kind of sector on gig work, they are saturating out the market because they're not supposed to be here doing this in the first place. And it's not that they're doing their 48 hours per fortnight. These guys are doing 60, 70, 80 hours a week sometimes. It's a breach of the student visa conditions. They should not be doing it, but it's being allowed to happen. Now, the Australian government is fully aware of these ghost colleges now. They're starting to crack down on them, trying to shut them down, especially since the Australian government has been paying the ghost colleges money for tuition to run as an educational institution in the country. They were getting paid to find people overseas to come across here and not actually study, and they were getting paid, these ghost colleges were getting paid to abuse a loophole from the government.
Bobby Singh had added the Symbiosis Institute of Technical Education to his scheme.
It worked very well with St Stephen's, and so they expanded into Symbiosis, and then they were going to expand again.
At their peak, these two colleges claim to have more than 270 international students and 340 domestic students, earning Singh $2 million in government subsidies.
So they're starting the crackdown to close down these ghost colleges. Secondly, the Australian Taxation Office is now aware that people are using ABNs when they come across on student visas, and they're just working their guts out, and then they'll dip out of the country. After 2 years or so, they'll dip out of the country and be like, cool, I'm done, I've earned heaps of money in Australia, I'm going back home overseas. They've been funneling their money overseas the entire time, and to the ATO is like, well, you got to pay your tax, right? If you don't pay your tax, you can't come back to Australia. And they're just like, well, yeah, fine. No worries. All good, mate. We're out of here. So back last financial year, the ATO put in new legislation that the gig companies now need to report across the earnings from the drivers or the independent business operators to the ATO. So they now know how much each ABN is earning in Australia, so they can catch them before they dip country and leave. So now we have the crackdown starting to occur from the Australian government closing down ghost colleges to stop the migration coming in the wrong way, where it's just people wanting to come across here to work full-time for a period of time. And we have the ATO now looking at how much gig workers are earning, and they're getting the records across from the gig companies. The pressure is turning on from the rot that's been occurring. But guys, I just want you to be aware that's what's been happening. That's been impacting gig drivers on the market. It's been impacting housing in the country. It is just open loopholes that have been occurring that people have been abusing. And you know what? Some people watching this might be like, hey, Chris, you're just being racist. No, I'm not being racist. I want people to come to Australia. I want people to migrate in. I want them to follow their working conditions on their visa. Australia needs migration to thrive. Australia has a fertility rate, I think, of 1.8 per 2 people. So we have a declining population. We need more people migrating in for the country to succeed over the long run. But when people are going through loopholes to get here, that's not on. We want the skilled migrants coming in. We want people who can help out the economy, not people who are going to come across on false pretenses, pretend to study, never show up to classes because it's a sham institute in the first place, just work full time and then dip out of the country without paying tax. That does nothing for our country. Guys, let me know if you want me to talk more about ghost colleges. Let me know if you want to hear more about student visa abuse. Let me know if you want to hear more about the migration and also housing crisis in Australia. I am happy to talk about it, but it's only a small part of what's going on, but it contributes through. But that's my thoughts, guys. That's just bringing some stuff up into the spotlight. It's very high level. We're not going to run through numbers and stats all the way through, but I just want you to be aware that the government is onto it. The government is aware of what's going on, and it does come down to the government to close these loopholes, to fix this stuff up. And sure, some people don't want to hear it. They're like, oh, this is crap. This is all bullshit. This is fucked. Well, you know what? It's not bullshit, crap, or fucked if you're doing the right thing. If you're doing the right thing and you're on the level, it's like, well, why are people not playing on the same playing field as me? That's not a fair goal, is it? No. Anyway, guys, that's all for today. Take it easy, drive safe, keep earning, keep hustling, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.